Chosen one. Something happened today that your heart has been waiting to hear for longer than you realize. The person you thought had buried their feelings behind a marriage has finally spoken words they never believed would leave their lips. They tried to hide this truth from everyone around them. But some emotions refused to stay imprisoned forever. What they admitted today changes everything you believed about your connection. Listen carefully. No one around your married soulmate noticed the quiet battle taking place inside their heart because they had become an expert at pretending everything was fine. Every morning they woke beside a life they had chosen, or perhaps a life that had been chosen for them, but before speaking to anyone else, before looking at their phone, before facing another ordinary day, there was always one thought that silently entered their mind. You. It happened so naturally that they stopped questioning it. Your name never had to be spoken aloud. Your face never had to appear in front of them. Somehow, your memory found its own path into their heart every single day, refusing to disappear no matter how much time had passed. They convinced themselves that these thoughts would eventually fade, but instead they became stronger with every sunrise. They smiled in front of family members while carrying a secret that no one was allowed to see. They fulfilled responsibilities while secretly wondering how life would have looked if one decision years ago had been different. Every celebration reminded them of something missing. Every peaceful evening somehow became another reminder of a conversation they never had the courage to finish with you. The hardest part was not missing you. It was pretending they didn't. There were moments when someone casually mentioned your city, your favorite song unexpectedly played in a crowded store, or a stranger walked by wearing the same color you once loved, and in those tiny moments, their entire world paused. They quickly looked away so nobody would notice the emotion filling their eyes. Their family believed they were simply tired. Their spouse believed they were distracted because of work. But neither of them knew the real reason. Hidden beneath years of silence was a heart that had never truly learned how to say goodbye. Your soulmate often told themselves that remembering you was unfair, that life had already moved forward, that the past should remain buried forever. Yet every attempt to erase you only made your memory more deeply rooted inside them. Don't skip. Because what happened next was something even they never expected. One quiet evening, after everyone else had fallen asleep, they found themselves sitting completely alone. The room was silent, but their thoughts were louder than ever before. They opened an old folder they had promised themselves they would never touch again. Inside wasn't just a forgotten photograph or an old message. It was a collection of moments they had secretly protected for years. Every memory carried both happiness and unbearable pain. They realized they had never truly thrown away anything connected to you. Instead, they had hidden those memories where nobody could find them. Not because they wanted to forget, but because forgetting had become impossible. That night, something finally broke inside them. For years they had repeated the same lie to themselves: I'm over it. I've moved on. It no longer matters. But the silence of that room forced them to face the truth they had been running from. With tears quietly forming in their eyes, they whispered words they never imagined they would admit. I still think about them every single day. Those words were spoken to no audience. No family member heard them. No friend was there to comfort them. Yet those few honest words carried more truth than every smile they had shown the world over the past several years. For the first time, they stopped fighting their own heart. What they didn't realize was that someone unexpectedly overheard that heartbreaking confession. And the person standing outside that door would soon make a decision capable of changing every life connected to this story forever. They stood frozen outside that door, unable to believe what they had just heard. Those quiet words were never meant for another soul, yet they had escaped at the exact moment someone happened to be passing by. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument ever could. Your married soulmate quickly wiped away their tears, believing the moment had ended, completely unaware that the truth they had hidden for so long was no longer theirs alone. The person outside slowly walked away without making a sound, carrying a secret powerful enough to change everything if it was ever revealed. The next morning felt strangely different. Your soulmate tried to return to their normal routine, smiling when expected, answering questions politely, and pretending nothing unusual had happened. But deep inside, they couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. They kept looking over their shoulder as if their heart already knew that the walls they had built around their emotions were beginning to crack. Every conversation felt awkward. Every glance from a family member seemed filled with unspoken questions. They wondered if guilt was finally catching up with them, or if destiny had quietly started moving again. As the day passed, the person who had overheard the confession couldn't stop thinking about those words. They replayed them again and again in their mind. It wasn't just the sentence itself that stayed with them, it was the pain behind it. They had never seen your soulmate speak with such honesty before. For the first time, they realized this wasn't a passing memory or a moment of weakness. This was a love that had survived years of silence, responsibility, and distance. They began asking themselves one difficult question: was it right to let two hearts remain separated if one of them had never truly let go? Don't skip. Because that very evening an unexpected conversation began. Without accusing anyone or revealing what had been overheard, that person gently asked your soulmate a simple question: if you could go back and change one decision in your life, would you? The question landed like a storm. Your soulmate froze. Their heartbeat quickened. They tried to laugh it off, but the answer was already written across their face. After a long silence, they looked down and quietly admitted, "There is one person I never stopped wondering about." Those words changed everything. For years they had protected their feelings behind silence, believing no one would ever understand. Now, piece by piece, the truth was slipping into the open. They still refused to say your name aloud, not because they had forgotten it, but because speaking it made everything feel real again. Every memory they had buried suddenly returned with incredible clarity: the conversations that ended too soon, the dreams that were never fulfilled, and the promise they once believed time would erase. Instead of fading, those memories had become stronger with every passing year. Meanwhile, somewhere far away, a series of unexpected events had quietly begun unfolding around you as well. Small signs started appearing one after another, each one impossible to explain. It was as though two separate paths, once forced apart, had begun slowly moving toward the same destination again. Neither of you knew it yet, but someone had already decided that this story deserved one final chance. And before the next sunrise, a hidden message connected to your past would unexpectedly surface. Carrying one truth your soulmate never believed anyone else would discover. The following morning began like every other, yet nothing felt ordinary anymore. Your married soulmate carried a restless feeling they couldn't explain. They tried to focus on the responsibilities waiting for them, but their thoughts refused to stay in the present. Every few minutes, their mind wandered back to the confession they had finally allowed themselves to make. It was as if speaking the truth had unlocked a door that could never be closed again. For years they had buried those emotions beneath duty, routine, and silence. Now those emotions were demanding to be heard, louder than ever before. Hours later, something unexpected happened. While searching through an old drawer for an unrelated document, someone in the family discovered a small envelope tucked beneath a stack of forgotten papers. It looked ordinary, covered in dust, as though it had been untouched for years. Nobody paid much attention to it at first. But when your soulmate noticed the handwriting on the front, every drop of color disappeared from their face. They recognized it instantly. Their hands began trembling before they had even opened it. Memories they had spent years trying to silence came rushing back all at once. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier, and their heart beat louder than every voice around them. Don't skip. Because what they found inside was far more powerful than anyone expected. The envelope contained a short handwritten note and one small photograph that had somehow survived every attempt to erase the past. The note wasn't filled with dramatic promises or impossible dreams. Instead, it carried a simple message that spoke directly to the heart. If life ever separates us, I hope you never believe that you were forgotten. Those words shattered every wall your soulmate had spent years building. Tears filled their eyes before they even realized they were crying. They had spent so long convincing themselves that you had moved on completely, never imagining that something from the past could still carry so much warmth, hope, and unfinished emotion. They quietly folded the note and held it close, unable to let anyone else see how deeply it had affected them. The people nearby assumed it was just another old memory, something that would soon be put away again. But they couldn't see what was happening inside your soulmate's heart. For the first time in years, they stopped asking whether they still loved you. They already knew the answer. The real question had become far more painful: had they waited too long? Every passing year suddenly felt like a missed opportunity. Every decision made out of fear now felt heavier than ever before. That evening, they stepped outside alone, searching for a moment of silence beneath the fading sky. They whispered your name so softly that even the wind almost carried it away. It wasn't a prayer. It wasn't a goodbye. It was simply the truth escaping from a heart that had grown tired of pretending. In that quiet moment, they admitted something they had never shared with anyone. If they could relive one chapter of their life, they would choose the day they let you walk away, and this time, they would never allow the distance to grow between you. But destiny had already begun writing its next chapter. At that exact moment, someone who had been watching these events unfold made a bold decision. They picked up their phone, searched for a contact they had hidden for years, and prepared to reveal a secret that could bring your name back into your soulmate's life once again. Before that call could be completed, however, another shocking truth emerged, one that explained who had secretly kept both of you apart all along. The phone remained in their hand for several long moments. Their thumb hovered over the screen, unable to press the call button. They understood that one conversation could change the course of many lives. Once the truth began to unfold, there would be no way to hide it again. They took a deep breath, looked at your soulmate one final time, and silently promised themselves that the years of confusion had gone on long enough. Someone deserved to know what had really happened. Later that night, an old family friend arrived unexpectedly. No one had invited them. No one even knew they were coming. They walked into the house carrying a small folder that had been stored away for years. It wasn't filled with legal papers or financial records. Instead, it contained forgotten messages, handwritten notes, and details of conversations that had never reached the people they were meant for. As those pages were opened one by one, a heartbreaking pattern slowly became impossible to ignore. Don't skip. Because this was the moment everything finally started making sense. Long ago, when your connection was still growing stronger, someone had quietly interfered. Messages had been hidden. Calls had gone unanswered, not because either of you ignored them, but because they never reached the other person. Meetings had mysteriously been cancelled. False stories had been repeated until both hearts believed the other had walked away willingly. Your soulmate had spent years believing you had chosen silence over love, while you may have believed they had forgotten you. Neither of you knew that another person's fear, pride, or selfish decision had slowly pushed both lives in different directions. As every forgotten detail came to light, your soulmate sat completely still. They didn't interrupt. They didn't argue. They simply listened, feeling each revelation strike their heart harder than the last. Suddenly, so many painful memories made sense. The unanswered message. The missed opportunity. The day everything changed without explanation. They realized that the ending they had accepted as fate had never been the complete truth. Tears rolled down their face, not only because they still loved you, but because they understood how much precious time had been stolen. Years that could have been filled with laughter had instead been filled with questions. Years that should have brought peace had become years of regret. For the first time, they stopped blaming destiny. Instead, they whispered, "If only I had known the truth sooner." The room fell silent again. No one knew what to say. Some lowered their heads in guilt. Others struggled to believe that one hidden secret could reshape so many lives. Yet deep inside, your soulmate felt something they hadn't experienced in a very long time, a small spark of hope. If the lies had finally been exposed, perhaps the story wasn't truly over after all. But just as that hope began to grow, another unexpected discovery emerged from the bottom of the old folder. It was one sealed envelope with your name written across the front. And according to the date on it, it had been waiting to be opened for many years. What was written inside would reveal one final truth your soulmate had never been prepared to face. The entire room became silent as the sealed envelope was placed into your soulmate's trembling hands. No one spoke. No one tried to guess what was inside. Somehow, everyone could feel that whatever had been hidden in that envelope had survived years for a reason. Your soulmate slowly broke the seal, unfolded the fragile letter, and began reading. With every line, their breathing became heavier. Their eyes filled with tears before they could even finish the first paragraph. The letter revealed a truth that neither of you had ever known. It explained that the distance between you had never been caused by a lack of love. It had been created by fear, misunderstanding, and the choices of people who believed they were protecting their own interests. It also revealed something your soulmate had never imagined, that even during the silence, there had been moments when you had tried to reach out, hoping for one honest conversation before letting go. Those attempts had never reached them. Your soulmate closed their eyes and held the letter against their heart. For years they had carried guilt, believing they had lost you because they had failed to fight hard enough. Now they realized that the story had been far more complicated than they had ever understood. The love they had tried to bury had never truly disappeared. It had simply been trapped beneath unanswered questions and unfinished chapters. They quietly whispered your name once more, but this time it was different. There was no denial left. No pretending. No running from the truth. They finally accepted what their heart had known all along: you had never stopped being an important part of their life. Even though circumstances had changed, even though time had moved forward, the memories had remained alive. In the days that followed, they chose to stop living inside regret. Instead of hiding from the past, they decided to face it with honesty. They forgave themselves for the things they couldn't control. They accepted that some questions might never receive complete answers. Most importantly, they realized that carrying love in the heart did not have to become a prison. It could become a lesson, a source of gratitude, and a reminder of how deeply a genuine connection can shape a person's life. Whether your paths would ever cross again remained unknown. Life rarely reveals every answer exactly when we want it to. But one thing had finally become clear: the greatest burden your soulmate carried was never the marriage itself, it was the belief that you had forgotten them. Once that belief was broken, peace slowly began to replace years of silent pain. Sometimes, the ending we imagine is not the ending life chooses. Some people return. Some never do. Yet every sincere connection leaves a permanent mark on the heart. The truth that was hidden for so long finally came into the light, allowing everyone involved to move forward with honesty instead of illusion. And perhaps that was the real miracle of this story, not that every wound disappeared overnight, but that the truth was finally spoken, the silence was finally broken, and two hearts that had carried unanswered questions for years were finally free from the weight of not knowing.